This is the Pineapple Perspective with Troy Hooper and sponsored by Pepper Lunch Restaurants. For those of you that watch this on YouTube, you'll see our quirky little faces and how we interact. For those of you listening, I apologize. You're missing that part of the show. So hopefully we'll make the audio experience even more worth it to make up for that. I am joined today by a phenomenal young man, Zachary Stein of SupplyCaddy. Zach, say hi.
Hi, everybody. Dr. Hooper, as we like to call him.
Yeah, that's a nickname you've decided for some reason to give me. So hey, I take it. It is what it is. However you, as long as you think of me positively, we hopefully that name is okay with me. Hey, full disclosure, Pepper Lunch Restaurants, Hot Palate America, the parent holding company for which I'm the CEO, is a customer to be. We're a customer, right? I mean, we've worked together for a year now, working on some projects. So that's just a little disclosure. We're not here to do an infomercial. We're here to have a great conversation with great people. And I think Zach is a remarkable young man who started a phenomenal business a few years ago. He's no stranger to the hospitality business. So I really wanted to get his perspective on all topics that we talk about on the show around hospitality. So Zach, the way we start the show out is I'm going to ask you directly, what does hospitality mean to you?
It's a great question. First, I just want to say thank you for having me, Troy and Pepper Lunch. Troy, it's been an honor to watch you in the community and what you do for the industry over the past year and a half that we've known each other, seeing you part of the trade shows and industry events. Truly, it's incredible what you do. So, quick shout out to you.
No
Um,
pandering to the host.
no, fair
The
enough.
questions
Fair
don't
enough.
get any nicer.
So what does hospitality mean to me? Um, to your point, I've been fortunate enough to be in and around the hospitality space a little bit. My background's in venture capital, started a few restaurants myself, and hospitality really comes down to the experience. Making sure that the experience for the consumer now when they're dining in the restaurant, when they're at home, whether they're picking up, that experience continuously translates to whether you have one, two, three, four, five locations. And as we see, just like Pepper Lunch, a lot of these emerging growth trends, how do they keep that consistency as they continue to grow and make sure that that experience is translated into the consumer and what they're experiencing at the store? I think it's so important to have that family, oriented feel once you go into one store in Los Angeles, California, and replicating that into Miami, Florida, and keeping the consistency and making sure that experience is streamlined across all the locations that might be there. So, to answer your question directly, coming in and leaving out with a really good experience is everything to me in hospitality.
So we'll get into a little bit of your history and not only how you started and what Supply Caddy does, but also want to talk about your experience in the hospitality business as an investor, as an owner, as a partner, et cetera. But how did you come up with that? So why is that your thesis? Where was that formed from? Translating this family oriented experience to the consumer every time consistently in the store. Where did that come from? How did you learn that?
Yeah, I think just growing up being a foodie, I think going back to my history a little bit, my grandfather, who I was very close with, him and I always had a history of going to a First Watch location in Palm Harbor, Clearwater, on Friday afternoons. And him and I, that was really our time to enjoy what was going on in our lives. And he was a big ladies' man, and he was always, very flirtatious with all the waitresses out there. And he showed to me that being at a restaurant was really important because you get to be one on one with who you're sitting down with. And, I always took that feeling of being with my grandfather, having one on one conversations and having something to look forward to, knowing that I was going to be there every single Friday. We were going to be able to talk about stuff I couldn't talk with my parents, and then seeing how could I get into this space from any different aspect. And the investor side came first, and then my cousins and I actually saw what we could do in the community that we live in Miami, and we ended up co-founding cold pressed juice bars here in Miami, Florida. And the real reason and impetus behind it was that we had this great community of people that we grew up with that extended through friends, family, relationships. And our goal was how do we bring everyone together to like a neighborhood spot? And we thought at the time, this was 7, 8 years ago, cold pressed juice, healthy acai bowls was really out in the community. And while we focused on the food, we really wanted to focus on bringing the community together and knowing that, if you come to, it was called Raw Republic, that you were going to hang out there. It wasn't going to be a place that you came in and out and you weren't going to get a juice or a smoothie and leave. We wanted to make it, hey, you're going to be there with your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. You're going to be there with your kids. You're going to be there with your friends. Make it an establishment where everyone can be involved and bringing, the availability of hospitality to everyone and feeling welcoming and seeing how if we got it right in Miami, how can we duplicate that to get to more owners and making sure that that story stood in whatever communities they were in?
I go to juice bars, Nectar, Robex,
Sure.
whatever, right? Um, I've never hung out in one. I've stayed as long as I needed to eat the acai bowl because I was afraid to put that on my lap in the car. But if I was just grabbing a juice, it's in and out, right? It's usually now it's
Yep.
place it on order on an app, and you're lucky if you get a high and a buy. How did you translate that mind? The mindset of the consumer, the expectation of the consumer is probably that, right? So how did you express to the community that this was a different kind of juice bar, that this was a place we want you to come and hang out. We want you to take chairs and space, and we want you to connect with your friends, family, loved ones, community, business, whatnot. How did you communicate that? How did you express that hospitality?
Sure, I think it's a great question. I think, and you know all too well, I mean, it starts from sort of the build out of the location and what that flow looks like, and trying to find, different parts of the store that were welcoming to people. But I think the most important thing that we did was really focus on community partners and bringing in the yoga studio, the hospital, offering discounts to in and around other workers that were there. And sometimes, in the cold pressed juice space, it could get expensive. So how are we attracting a lot of people during their lunch hour to make sure that they're staying? So we would bring in a lot of like entertainment and making sure that there was education in and around the community, what was being, uh, what was sort of accessible to them. A lot of people don't really know the partners within their community and they're used to going to one location for one specific thing. So, like I said, we would bring in the yoga people, we would make sure that the chiropractor was here, everything that was in and around sort of like the health experience. And I think it brought a new perspective to people that you weren't just going to, Raw Republic to get a juice or an acai bowl, but we were trying to educate people about what else was out there and sort of take you through this journey of health and give people access to other things that they wouldn't usually get access to, and bringing everything under one roof. And it allowed them to extend their stay instead of going in and out for a juice transaction. We were trying to give them the most amount of options for them to know what was being involved in the community.
That's pretty phenomenal. I've never heard of folks doing that to that degree. I mean, you hear about it a little bit in certain venues and certain businesses, but yeah, I think connecting to partners and expressing a shared experience that that somebody who drinks this juice also might want to learn about or need more info or access, to information around. I think providing that's pretty hospitable. So congratulations. That's a great concept. So let's talk about, you talk about your grandfather. And by the way, my father was the same way. I didn't have to wait once a week. It was many days a week usually. And it was a bar, not really a sit down restaurant. I grew up in the Bennigans and the Fridays and I don't know what else, the Sword and
Love it.
Marlin and, a few of those other ones from Miami, but, we have that in common, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it's formative, right? And people don't realize how much kids pay attention and how we treat other people and how we interact with other people translates directly to the behavior of our children. So I commend your grandfather for building that relationship, but also not hiding that part of himself. So it probably has a little something to do with you being a fairly outgoing guy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, Troy. I mean, I think what I learned from my grandfather in those experiences is how to treat people, at its core. And the hospitality workers, sometimes people don't give them enough credit in the hours they work and how much really goes into it. And when I saw him interacting with everyone from the person who's greeting you to making sure that he was going to the back to celebrate the chef every single day, all the way down to the waitress who's there, to the people who are cleaning the restaurant, that whole hospitality sort of cycle of what's involved just to get something plated onto your, the food plated, was incredible. And it just really stuck with me for my entire life.
So let's start working towards our way into your business life. And yeah, you're in venture capital, you've been an investor, you've been a owner, partner in a business, and now you've founded with your other partner this company. But before we talk about those specifics, now we know a little bit about you and your belief system and how you got that belief system in hospitality. So, how do you apply that in business? And whatever example you give, but when you're in the investment venture capital world, or when you're starting a hospitality juice brand, or when you're starting a packaging company, right? A customized, do it differently than everybody else has ever done it, packaging creation company. How do you translate that thesis, that mindset? How do you bring that to life in the spaces that are not traditionally thought of as hospitality?
For me, it really comes down to passion. I think when you sort of see a void in an industry, and for us, it happens to be the packaging sort of QSR fast casual, we find a way to really develop relationships, and you're probably the best at that I've seen anywhere in this industry or others. But when you see sort of the blood, sweat, and tears that these operators or founders put into a single concept, and everyone likes to think that success stories happen overnight, and we can use all the old adage and the history of a lot of the large companies, but the restaurant and hospitality space is truly unique. I remember juicing on a Good Nature X1 at 4 o'clock in the morning, spinach and celery and carrots, and people don't really see through that, how much it takes to, bottle one thing of juice. And when I see a lot of these restaurant owners and concepts that are coming, and when I see them go from one location to three to 10 to 20 and still hold true the values that got them there in the beginning, to me that hits home. It just it shows you what they're willing to put in to sort of get what they want. And at the end of the day, it's providing a really cool experience, really good food, and they want this to be able to go to the masses and to be able to duplicate and replicate and continue to grow. And the restaurant hospitality industry is truly unique, in my opinion, that, you know, everyone likes food. They like to eat, and having to put in all the effort, and more than anyone, that goes into how much is going to go on a portion, what ingredients are going to be able to go into it, the restaurant build out. There's so many different things that come into delivering that experience. And to me, being in the hospitality industry and seeing the passion that the founders and operators have, it's easier for us to be able to develop, what we do now is packaging, because, you know, we just want to support them in their ability to be able to grow as many as they can.
So let's talk about this business, Supply Caddy. Like you said, we met probably 18 months ago. We had a formative meeting at the NRA show that kicked off a project together that's culminating now, and we're really excited about that. But talk about the difference. I mean, you got to tell people, look, I mean, is packaging really sexy? I got to tell you, I've been to hundreds of conferences and conventions. I've been to NRA and all these shows for many years. Probably talked to 100 different packaging companies from all over the world. Some have some really interesting, really unique, cool stuff that's extremely expensive. There's a lot of commodity crap that a white cup's a white cup's a white cup, even though we all know it's really actually not if you look into it. But,
That's true.
what the heck made you get into this business, and what is the thesis of Supply Caddy?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, March of 2020, so the very beginning of the pandemic, we were
Great timing to
introduced,
get in the restaurant
great,
business.
great timing, but it was unique timing. Um, so pandemic sort of did help us launch the company. And at the time, as you would remember, restaurants were closed and third-party delivery was booming. And it sort of became the different way that restaurants were used to operating, and really trying to drive people into the restaurant, but to be able to survive, third party delivery became essential to, allowing them to continue to stay open. And the focus of packaging wasn't really there, because they always wanted to drive people into the restaurant. So we had this aha moment, and our first client out of the gate was Popeyes. Their dining rooms were closed. Their manufacturer here domestically sort of had capacity that filled up very quickly, and they were looking for solutions. And we looked at ourselves in the face and said, hey, is Popeyes an anomaly, or are other QSR fast casual brands going through the same challenges as they are? And it really was related to supply chain diversification. And really, for the first time, even brands as big as Popeyes, all the way down to regional or even single stores, finding a way to diversify their supply chain on a product category, even as granular down to an individual SKU. And it opened up the purchasing and supply chain and executive leadership team to say, hey, we do need to do things differently. And we saw that as an opportunity to sort of take advantage. And now, with the third party delivery booming, the influence of sort of social media and how people are seeing food and the visualization of food and the aesthetics of everything that's going on, and these influencers are taking over your brand. Sometimes you don't have control of it. And we want to make sure that, what we previously talked about, that the dine-in experience of what someone is going into a store was correlating into what they're going to get at their home. And the packaging industry specifically was sort of archaic. To your point, it was very commoditized. There wasn't a lot of customization that we saw. It was very driven by like catalog companies. And, we thought, how do we do things differently? And, our thesis, to your point, is really, what are you trying to solve and what is the packaging trying to do for you specifically? If you have fried chicken and you have steak or you have rice or you have salad, all of that's going to react differently into the packaging that's going in there. So we built a team. We take a team of engineers and food scientists, and we go down to a store level or a test kitchen if the brand's big enough, and we really test plating the food down to the dimensions, the height of the box, the height of the bag, etc., and making sure that it's very customized to what you're trying to accomplish. And for me, that's very rewarding because it goes back to my grandfather's experience and to what you guys are doing. You know, pepper lunch food, obviously very unique and truly exceptional in the experience that you guys are driving. But your experience is totally different than the next QSR and the next fast casual. And it didn't feel right to us to offer the normal 6x6 foam container to you guys that someone else is getting. So I think the opportunity to do things a little bit differently and really drive down customization specifically to the food and the concept was something that was so eye-opening, and something that we thought we could take advantage of in a good way and really partner with them to be able to deliver the experience they deserve.
Well, it's amazing to think that a company as big as Popeyes was not really optimized. Like, they had their chain and they didn't have redundancy. That's one set of problems on the supply chain side. But on the other side, you open their eyes to the possibilities. And this is how you do it. It's how you did it with us and how we came to our very unique product, which I hope you have one sitting there somewhere.
I
But
do.
very unique product, which is, is that you start asking questions, right? It wasn't, well, what color and how big and what volume, and do you want it to be sustainable, or do you care, or just want the cheapest thing? That's what everybody asks in this business, is those simple, and then they show things to you, right? You weren't going to show us anything because you had 100 questions to understand what was unique about us. And boy, what an investment. You sent your lead engineer and designer to Hong Kong to go to Pepper Lunch and spend an entire day and, not only eat the food, observe the production, weigh the food, check moisture, check heat, check all salt, whatever you do. And, that was very, very different experience. And I think that you, like you said, you kind of open the eyes to what's possible. And I think being a specialist in that, being a concierge style service, really trying to solve for an experience, and then reverse engineering to utilize the highest technology, the most sustainable practices, a redundant supply chain on the raw material or regenerative supply chain. Boy, I think all of those things are make you very, very unique in that space. I want to make a comment about to your pandemic. Pre-pandemic, the average off-premise sales for a QSR fast casual packaged and sent out the door, whether it's delivery or pickup, was 10 to 17%. I mean, averaging 15%, I think, really. And then obviously pandemic totally changed the game. Some restaurants that in 2019 were trending 20, 25%. Boy, those hitting 30 or 35 were like the top tier. Now 65% is moderate, top tier moderate.
Right.
And the wing brands are out there doing, and pizza, and some of these guys are doing 90, 95% off premise. But, people in the 35 is sort of benchmark today, right? 35, 40% off premise is benchmark. And to think that how that might change the mindset of the same stuff doesn't work for everything, right? The same 3 clamshells or, whatever, don't cut it anymore. And pre-pandemic, very, very few companies were thinking about that. Tell me about how you're sort of getting companies to look at and think about sort of reverse engineering the customer experience, the quality product as it arrives 30 minutes later to the house, how you're thinking about sustainability, technology. Boy, there's a lot of pieces in there that I think you like to hone in on. Tell us a little story about that.
Yeah, Troy, I think it's a great point too. What we've seen change, and I think your statistics are spot on. I mean, we have concepts that are doing upwards of 80, 85% on off-premise dining, which is wildly different than the beginning of the pandemic. But what it's helped them decide actually for these concepts that are growing and these multi-unit operators is sort of the evolution of what the store looks like. People were always trying to look at maybe bigger footprints and welcoming more people. We've seen concepts change from 3,000 square foot to 1,000 square feet because they can see the volume that they can put out there. I think, as much as we're a packaging company, we're also partnering with these guys and giving them the data and the information. That's what's happening. And it's transforming what their business model sometimes looks like. Sometimes it's sort of launched by us, sometimes it's with tandem with them. But I think that's something pretty unique about what packaging and off-premise dining can do. It translates to your entire business model, right? I mean, specifically for what we're trying to do with you guys, I mean, we really worked hard to mimic that hot plate, hot skillet experience in store. It's truly unique more than any brand we've worked with domestically or internationally. But we didn't want to just give you a few ideas. You sort of know the diligence we went into it, and that's what we're trying to get brands to think of. We're trying to simulate third party delivery and what they're currently doing and showing them what that actually looks like when it gets to the end consumer. Because a lot of the times, the store operators, the franchisees, and whether they're multi unit operators or not, they're only seeing it go out the door when they package it into the paper bag or the plastic bag that's there. Sometimes they're not seeing sort of the tentacles that it has, and it gets all the way down to the person who might be a food influencer and they're sharing it, and they get it to their house, and the wings, to your point, aren't as crispy, the fries are soggy, and that translates to the people wanting to revisit that store. So we're trying to make sure that we are working with the concept directly, showing them sort of what they're doing now, how we can possibly make it better, but really asking that question: what do you want the packaging to do for you? Because you can get into a cost conversation, and sometimes the franchisees, cost is the driver. Sometimes sustainability is the driver. A lot of the times you might be 200, 300 locations and growing, and the municipalities are driving sort of the regulations of what the packaging is. So making sure that, hey, San Bernardino, California has one type of packaging, the Pacific Northwest has one, but making sure that the aesthetics of the brand all sort of looks the same and the food delivery is still ending up the same way. So we're really trying to take a holistic approach on not only the raw material, but sort of the branding and visibility of what that looks like. And I still think it goes back to the customization of what the brand is and their willingness to make a change. And making a change is just sort of listening to what else is out there. We're not asking you to make a change immediately. We're very big into testing and feasibility tests on certain number of locations and proving out the methodology behind what we're doing. And I think if a brand is open to seeing what else is out there, obviously we're cognizant of where costs are coming from. And especially if you're an emerging growth chain and you're trying to sign up more, operators and franchisees, trying to keep costs, the best that you can. But sometimes the change is needed to make things a little bit better. And we're really, we're trying to do that the best we can and being sensitive to, where these guys are really making money at the end of the day.
Well, and it comes down to, like you said, there's a lot of points, but it really comes down to, does the customer feel like you cared when you put it in the box, and the box it comes in matters. I think the box, the bag, the cup, the lid, the spoon, I think it matters because it really is an extension of your experience. Did you think about in your full service restaurant? Did you think about the plates and the spoons and the glasses and the different kinds of glass? Did you think about all these things, and whether it's catering, that's a whole new level of business
Huge.
for a lot of folks. The pandemic changed a lot around most people ordering one or two things for lunch or whatever, to now they were feeding the entire family on a delivery model. They're feeding entire offices on delivery model. Of course, catering's always been around, but now it's much more experiential. That sort of shows off your hospitality to whoever you're feeding, that you really cared and thought about what you were serving and how you were serving it. So yeah, I think that matters. Talk a little bit about those vulnerabilities that I think a lot of restaurateurs and multi-chain franchisees, operators, even brands, they don't think about redundant supply chain. COVID helped a little bit, but man, I don't see people talking about it. I went to a day and a half long supply chain summit in Denver a few days ago and listened to some statistics, listened to some specialists in this field, talked to other brands, many other brands. My competitor brands were there, and the heads of their supply chain were there. And I didn't hear a lot of focus on redundancy and security of your supply chain. Didn't hear a lot of talk about regenerative practices, and sustainability still seems like a buzzword. What I did hear a lot about is things I don't know about and that you're an expert in, and that is the laws of California are one thing. The laws of within a county or a major city like Los Angeles are all different. And so if I have stores across California and in Nevada and Utah, what we make has to work, or we have to have versions of it. So talk a little bit about those technical challenges that I don't think brand, certainly day-to-day on the ground operators are not concerning themselves with or even aware of, and certainly don't have the time or capacity to learn about it, but you're thinking about from the back end in support of us to make sure we're in compliance and we're putting the best possible product out there.
Yeah, and I think that's a great conference. I was there last year. Unfortunately, my kid's birthday, I couldn't be there, but incredible folks, amazing industry people there. So I hope you had a good time. And Denver's a fun city to
Learned
see
a
it.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us that we sort of made brands aware of, and the pandemic was sort of the driver of this, was diversification of supply chain. So making sure that continuity of supply is always going to be there, and making sure that the product that might be made domestically, that might be made overseas, is using the same raw material, using the same dimension, and the finished product is going to be there. I think people are a little bit apprehensive to open a new supply chain channel when it hasn't been tested yet. But once you show them what is capable and you put together the plan in place, they're more willing to open up. And our sort of thesis is, and what we believe in is, we deliver. It's part of what we believe here at SupplyCaddy, and it's proving to you that we can deliver and building out not only the diversification of supply chain, but using technology to your earlier point about forecasting a 12-month delivery schedule based on what the product usage or velocity or PARs are to a specific SKU, to who your specific broadliner is, how much inventory they're willing to take, and the visibility that we're willing to offer, I think is a little bit different than those out there. So we work very closely with broadliners, the concept ourselves, our partners in manufacturing, to make sure that we have a technology that is unison across everyone. It's the nucleus to everything that we do, to make sure that we know that you guys have 10 locations, and I'm using this as an example, open, June 1st of 2024. You're going to open up 10 in Q3, 10 in Q4, and making sure that the new store openings is taken into account the amount of raw material we're going to buy if we need to source somewhere else. And I think that's the biggest challenge. Sometimes are people very much coerced into doing what they're used to, and they put blinders on. And if you're using a single source, and I don't recommend doing a single source for anything, you find yourself in a situation of being defensive, and then you're trying to find the second or third supplier. And for a lot of these brands that had huge volumes and huge usage, another pandemic could be around the corner and you put yourself in the position of losing. So sometimes we even partners with peers in the industry and saying, hey, volume might be a little bit too big for what we're doing, but we also want to diversify where we're getting product from. And it allows us to be successful and being very transparent with the brand and how we're doing it. I think technology is a big driver for us. We've invested a lot into supply chain technology and forecasting, especially working with emerging growth brands, because we want to make sure that we have enough availability here. We're buying the right raw material. We're forecasting to what's coming. If they're willing to do LTOs, et cetera, making sure that everything's in the hopper to make sure that we're prepared for what's coming.
There's a lot to it. I mean, I've learned a lot through the last year, but the other good part for me is I don't have to be a technology expert in
I'm
supply
certainly
chain
not.
yeah. And I don't know. All I know is our new hot plate replica in packaging is the first aerospace engineered, multi-layered
There you go.
uh, thing, and that's okay. What matters is that it has the right structure and sturdiness. It manages the moisture correctly. It retains heat better than anything on the market. Not only does it physically represent our brand, which is great, but it technologically represents the experience so that you can get the hot food hot, right? I think even more important and very important for our parent ownership group, our private equity fund that owns Hot Palate as a whole, and Pepper Lunch as a brand, is sustainability. And it was one of the first things you said to us and we said to you. And, sometimes sustainability is more expensive. Net jet aerospace technology is more expensive. But at the end of the day, we're thinking about the brand. We're thinking about how does this experience represent the brand from end to end, all of the stories above, and regenerative practices and all that. Those are a lot of times buzzwords, but you guys really understand this technical stuff. And then, obviously keeping up with the legal regulatory stuff. I don't even know how you do it. It's almost daily in California that things change. And I need you. I need a partner. And I think most people just, go to Cisco or US Foods or somebody and they buy the white cup off the shelf and it comes in a giant box, which I have nowhere to store. And I never worked with somebody so bespoke in a way that said to us, great, how many do you go through a day? So what do you want to keep? 2 days, 3 days, a week on hand? What is your par level? What is your shelf size? Do we need to box this in a 12-inch pack or 16 or 30-inch pack? Nobody's ever said to me, we're going to pack it so that it fits in your store and covers you for an expressed period of time. That's really remarkable. How did you really come to being the concierge bespoke service of packaging? How did you decide that all of these differentiating metrics were things that you needed to care about, pay attention to? Because certainly it's a much bigger investment of time, energy, and money on your part.
Yeah, and I appreciate all that. I think, again, it goes back to the packaging industry specific to QSR and fast casual has been around forever, right? 100 plus years, first McDonald's, first Burger Kings that have opened. And we sort of, I remember when we first started SupplyCaddy, we were looking back at old newspaper articles of what Burger King ads were and seeing like the same paper bag back then still being used today, right? And we came into this industry and we, took a holistic view and we tried to see where we can do things differently. And I think a little bit of our background in hospitality and driving a true customer experience comes down to the partnership. And it goes down to really getting into the store levels. We visit site visits, we go into the stores that we're working with. We see the footprints that we're working with. And a lot of these stores, space is very valuable. So even to the example that you spoke about, sometimes they're ordering something from Cisco, it's 1,000 case pack, I'm making it up. It might not be able to fit on the shelf horizontally and they have to stick, it vertically, and now they're fitting three across there and they can't put their, onions or whatever it may be there. So I think tactically thinking about um, how we can do things a little bit differently and how it's important to the operator. If we can make it this vertical of their entire day a little bit easier so they don't have to think about it and we can ask all the questions that we think can get to the solution a little bit easier, if we can help them on their day to day. And as you know, there's so many people working in the restaurant at any given time. Our goal is to help them be the most profitable, the most successful, and to eventually open as many locations as they want, if that's obviously important to them. And if we think through this as almost like a Tetris puzzle, if you will, I think our mentality of asking the questions that others don't and having these personal conversations and really investing into the relationships, Troy, I think, not to come out the wrong way, we're really cherry picking the clients and the opportunities we want to work with. And it really goes down to the passion, the concept, are they growing, et cetera, and can we really make a difference? There's a lot of opportunities where we say no to because we might not be able to make a difference. They might be in states that are still using foam. That's not really important to the values at Supply Caddy. And I think working with you and your team, I think we've met the entire team twice now at back-to-back NRAs. You guys are so passionate about the brand and the story of Pepper Lunch and how you've grown globally, internationally, and what you guys are willing to put into the brand to see this thing scale domestically, which I know you're leading, really like hit home for us. Like there's not a lot of conversations that we get to have with operators and CEOs like you. I mean, this is a year into your point, and we're continuously investing our time, money. You're continuously investing your time. And I think this is a really cool way to learn more about people, learn more about the brand. We get to meet the executive leadership team, a couple of weeks ago at NRA in Chicago, and everyone has their opinion of what the brand means to them and what they're trying to accomplish. And we can all put that in sort of the same circle, sitting around a campfire together. Like that feels really good to us. And it goes back to, I keep going back to my grandfather and I, and sitting at a First Watch restaurant, and that experience. Like it's from the top down, and you feel that within Pepper Lunch. And if we can duplicate that into other sort of concepts, it's a rewarding factor that I don't think you get in a lot of other industries. And the hospitality space is, again, truly unique, and you feel it through the people. And happy to be doing what we're doing. It's really exciting.
Well, it's remarkable. I got to tell you, talking to 30, 50, 100 packaging supply companies over my career, but even for Pepper Lunch, probably talking to 10 or 12 before I met you. The most inquisitive, insightful, deep question I was asked was 8 ounces, 12 ounces, 16 ounces, PLA or whatever, some other thing. I never heard of bagasse. I don't even know what that is anymore. But, they didn't ask anything about what we were trying to do for our customer, what we were trying to do for our business, what we were trying to do for our employees, operational efficiency, operational support. Nobody asked all those questions. So I'll leave this part of the conversation with, if you're out there and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, all they do is try to sell me stuff. That's the opposite of what SupplyCaddy and Zach and the team do. I haven't paid them $1 in over a year, although I think we're getting pretty close. They've put a tremendous amount of time, effort, energy, a lot of thought, a lot of passion, a lot of patience into this project, and I think that that's something you're just not going to find from any other supply product provider. So that's my little commercial for you, Zach.
Appreciate
Let's
it.
start to wrap this up. We'll take it back. We started with the personal stories. Let's take it back to some personal experiences. Being a man of Miami now, for those that are listening, some do know, many don't know. I'm a third generation Miamian. I'm a third generation Miami Hurricane. My father was born on campus at the University of Miami, as I've told you way too many times. So we have a lot of, although we're of a different generation, of course. I'm not quite old enough to be your father, but we're pretty close. Tell me about the best meal you've had in the last memorable months, whatever that is. What's something that just pops off to you? Best meal you've had.
The best meal I've had. Listen, I'm a big supporter of local Miami brands and concepts. I live in Miami Beach. Troy's sort of familiar with the geography down here. There is a place called Silver Lake Bistro on 79th Street in North Miami on the beach. They started as a market selling wine and cheese and all this other stuff, and they opened a couple years ago now. It's become a neighborhood favorite. They have the best pork chop I have ever had in my entire life. No liquor, just beer and wine. And this goes back into the experience. My wife and I, we sit at the bar. The waiter and bartender is the same guy every single Friday night. He knows us. He sees us walk in. The glass of wine is waiting. Our favorite bottle is sitting right there for us. There's a French fry with a side of caviar on top of it that my wife loves, that's waiting literally as we walk in because they know our reservation. It sits there. It's probably the best experience I continuously have. But we were there 2 Fridays ago. It was just incredible, and we're trying to support them as they continue to grow. And love having a neighborhood spot that we can walk to.
Yeah, I love that. It's always about the experience. I've always had my spot, and I haven't had my spot in a while. Right now, it is Lazy Dog because that's really convenient for me and my son, and they know him, and boy, we get all the love and hospitality there. But it's been a long time. Haven't had my bar spot in a while. I used to have my bar spot where they literally would see me park, and they know you're popping in at 5:30 a couple days a week, and they would see me park my vehicle, and my drink would be waiting for me. And I had a very specific drink. I drink Belvedere vodka with cranberry, 2 limes, very tall, as big as glass you got in the building. And I'm a thirsty guy. And they would have it there, on the nearest seat available to where I normally would like to sit in the room
What's
or
better
at
than
the
that?
bar.
I mean, come on.
What's better
It's
than that?
incredible.
Right? Every Belvedere vodka 2 limes is probably pretty close to being the same, but not every place can deliver it with hospitality, right?
That's right.
Well, last question, Zach. I'm going to put you on the spot one more time because
Sure.
that was an easy one for you. You had that one, I think, easy peasy. But talk real quick as we talk about the thesis here on the show is really about not that every business is in the people business, because we all believe that every business is in the people business, but every business is really in the hospitality business. And if you really take that mindset to heart, you're going to deliver a different experience to the customer, and you're going to deliver a different experience to your employees, and they're going to in turn want to do that. Tell me if you can think of one here on the spot. Tell me about an unexpected hospitality moment where you kind of got the tinglies and you noticed a moment of service or empathy or surprise and delight from a place or a situation you might not have expected it.
I will tell you, and I'll use this example because they're good friends and clients, but Dave's Hot Chicken, for example, my first time going there. I have we do a couple SKUs with them and again some cool custom products with them. When I first went to a Dave's a couple of years ago now, I thought it was another one of these chicken places. And obviously, everyone knows the history and their tremendous growth and their executive leadership team and their franchisees and what they've been able to do. But when I walked in there, and my very good friends are Dave's franchisees in Tampa, and I was there 2 months ago when they opened their second location to help them celebrate the camaraderie of everyone when you walk through that door. You would think that you're at a 5-star Michelin star restaurant experience from the moment you walk in that door to the time you go out. And I thought that they did the most incredible job of differentiating themselves from a QSR fast casual experience, from not only the food being incredible and sort of the brand story, but you walk in there and the store, this one was in Tampa. It was very specific to Raymond James, the Tampa Bay Bucks, University of South Florida, the build out, the graffiti, the team of 40, 50 people that were there. And even during at 12 o'clock, their busiest hour, my friends were greeting every person that walked in the door. They were making sure that the food was good. They were giving you some free stuff on the side. That was probably an unexpected experience. And I just thought of one that I'll throw off there because Dave's, we know is through the moon. And again, incredible what they're doing. We just started working with a new concept called Juicy Patties. This is Jamaican beef patties. They have about 50, 60 locations in Jamaica. They just opened up in Hollywood, Florida. 2 locations, opening up their third one. And completely, I should have started with this unexpected experience. I've never had a a beef patty. I went to their locations. They've been clients for about 6 months now. It was the most sound operational experience. The guys were incredible and really trying to bring like the Jamaican culture into every one of their stores. And first of all, these Jamaican beef patties were incredible, the spicy beef with cheese, etc. I did not expect to see the amount of people and the affinity to Jamaican food in Hollywood, Florida that you apparently see in Jamaica. I was blown away with the experience. Um, Shout out to Juicy Patties, but it was absolutely probably should have led with that. The most unexpected, incredible experience I've had in a restaurant outside of Dave's in the last 6, 12 months.
Well, since you're down there in Miami, I know the beach people don't leave the beach very often. It's kind of you got to go over a bridge at some point, and that makes you guys very nervous. You don't come onto the
It's
mainland
so,
very often.
so true.
But if you get a chance to get over to Westchester,
Yep.
across the street from Tropical Park, there's a croquette bar, a croquette business. I never thought of anything but croquettes having 2 or 3 flavors max. These folks are doing croquettes, 30 ways. They're doing flights. They're doing incredible, catering boxes and to go. And the store is beautiful. It's in the most unexpected side alley of a building. And it's just this incredible Miami eclectic, unique experience that's so well refined and put together. Very much to your Jamaican patty place. You wouldn't have expected it. look, I was raised by Cubans in Miami from day one, and to walk into a place in my old neighborhood, I grew up not far from there, and I'm like, a croquette restaurant? How many? Boy, did they blow me away. By the way, they have alcohol, so you get a little like frozen drink
Belvedere on
or
the rocks.
pina colada kind of drink with your croquettes. Get a
That's
spicy
awesome.
something, cool it down. Yeah, I love those types of stories. That was great. And by the way, I want to check this place out. I grew up with my best friend's Jamaican. I couldn't eat their patties because his mom, when I said, make it not spicy at all, not spicy to the Jamaican mother, burned my face off. And I'm just very sensitive to spice. So I love a good Jamaican patty if I can find one that's not spiced.
No, it was amazing. They came to our office Friday. We're testing a new box for them, and they have a 12, patty box that we make. And to your point, the mild, our team was starting to eat it, and they're like, "Whoa, man, I don't know if we can
Yeah.
handle this
Yeah.
heat." But
Yeah. You
great
got to go for
experience
the mild,
nonetheless.
mild. Well, good stuff. Well, Zach, it's been an awesome conversation. Tell people how they can find you and Supply Caddy.
Yeah, Troy, again, thank you, and thank you for everything you do for the industry. I think you're one of the most incredible leaders that I've seen again, and I commend you for everything you're doing for not only the hospitality space, but Pepper Lunch as well. You can find us supplycaddy.com. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, or you can send us an email at hello@supplycaddy.com, and we would love to have a chat.
Awesome stuff, man. Appreciate the time. Hopefully, we brought some value. I think we definitely educated some folks to think a little bit deeper about what supply chain in the packaging and the speciality of their experience they can deliver to their guests through their packaging could be. And I think they should definitely have a conversation with you guys about what that looks like. Good to have you. Look forward to seeing you again soon, my friend.
Thanks, Troy.
Thank you for listening to The Pineapple Perspective. If you loved today's episode, leave a review and a 5-star rating. I look forward to welcoming you back next time.